computer. Hey, there we go. All right, our facilitator tonight is Carol Appenzeller. She's also a co-lead on the food team at Bainbridge Prepares. And Carol's been growing great veggies for a few decades and produces a ton of veg annually on her shy half acre, which is an inspiration to every grower west of the Cascades. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Carol Appenzeller.
That's so sweet, John. Hi, everybody. I'm so glad you're here. This is such a cool community. Thank you so much for being here. In the chat, you will see three or four links, four links. One is to sign up for the reminders and resources, the events page that I send out. So most of you are here because you got that, I imagine. But that's one of the things. And the other one is the resource page for tonight. So it's actually resource pages. So you might be trying to take notes down about something and I might say that's on the resource page. So if you go into the chat and you see that resource doc, you can open that if you want to refer to it, and it has links in it. And then also Zoom link, that's how you got here, but if you for some reason need to copy that. And then any questions at all, you can email me and I will be glad to talk with you. And we hope when I ask questions tonight that you will just speak out. You don't have to put the answers into the chat. There aren't that many people, so if there were a ton of us, then even if you had a question at any time, we'd have you put it into the chat. But I kind of like it being more like a real life conversation. So let's take a look here. Okay. Can you see my slide?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is us starting up for the year. This is what we're going to find out tonight. If you're a new grower or an experienced grower, you might want where to grow, how to figure that out. Maybe on your property, you already have a garden, but you're wondering, what are my other sunny spots? Is it really only my sidewalk in front of my house that gets any good sun? And what kind of beds are right for you? Gardeners, experienced and inexperienced, sometimes switch the kind of beds they're using. How to set up your soil for success, when to dig and when to plant. Don't dig now. What varieties grow best here, or where you can find those varieties, and how to feel like a food-grown genius by having thriving plants, and tons of resources on the resource page. Let's see if we can get that. First, where are we going to put it? Where are you going to put your garden? I have extended my garden because I finally figured out where there was a little bit more sun. So here's my quiz for you that I always like to give people. The answer is, of course, vegetables. I say this because so many people say, we redid the backyard, we've done all these things, we have the sport court in and the barbecue thing and where we're going to hang out. And then they go, and we have this little corner where we thought we always said we'd put the vegetable garden. Will you come help me with it? And it's like got 3 hours of sun. So I think those veg should go out front and center. A thriving vegetable garden makes you feel competent, and it's fun and it's pretty. So that's a gorgeous one, right? Yours doesn't have to look like that. But let's find the sun. So how do we do that? It might be kind of misleading on your property because I've had several instances where I have lived where when I come home from errands or work or whatever in the afternoon, this one area is blisteringly hot and incredibly bright. And I think, that must be my sunniest spot. I'll put tomatoes there. But it turns out it's in shade, and then it has 2 hours of surface of the sun, and then it's in shade again. So that's not what we're really interested in. That's really quite hard on a plant. So the traditional way of finding where those longer hours of sun are is to walk around at like 8 in the morning and have a little sketch of your house and make hash marks wherever there's shade. And then you take off for the day, and another day you do that at 10 in the morning, and a few days later you do it at noon, and you just keep doing it. And wherever there are a lot of hatch marks is where you have the most shade, and you can make notes on it, like it started at 12 and it ended at 3 here. And you will figure out just by walking around and taking a peek and making notes, because it's easy to forget, where those sunny, warm places are. Or you could not wait till then, and you could just do it tonight with Shade Map. This is an app. It's new. It doesn't use brand new maps, but it uses Google Maps. And some of them I've seen are like 10 to 14 years old. Some of them are like 6. So it's not perfect right now, but when you go to ShadeMap app, it's free and you can find your house on it. And initially, when you get there, it's going to show shadows and you'll be able to pick the day of the year. So you could do it tonight and you could pick July 21st at noon and it would show you the shadows. And it's a slider and you can go back and forth time-wise and go 8 in the morning, 8 at night, and you can see the shadows move, which originally I thought that was all it did. So I was trying to like math out how many hours there were, but no, there's a layer. So small over in the corner over here, and it's going to be much smaller on your screen. That's the layers, and you click that and you choose hours of sun, and ta-da, this pops up. And wherever you put your cursor, it's going to show you how many hours of sun you get there. So this is a real house that belonged to a friend of mine at one time. And I put my cursor back here, and this is the backyard. This is where everybody puts their garden, right? Because you wouldn't have the garden out front. And it gets not as many hours of sun as would be most successful. But over here, and it's kind of color-coded, almost 12 hours of sun. So clever them, they put fruit trees right here, and that's a public path and everybody walks by and it's not a problem. And they put their veg right here. So that's their front yard. I thought that was pretty cool. Has anybody used Shade Map? Super easy. Oh, there's also, it says buy premium or get the upgrade. It's only $3.99, and it shows you, like, if you have a shrub or something that's casting a lot of shade, it might not show in the free version, but it'll show a little bit more detail in that one. And of course, if a whole forest of trees has been cut down in the past year, it's not totally up to date, but it's certainly very helpful, I think. So now you know how to find how much sun you have. And I'm just going to pop into what you can grow in the sun you have before we go on to, beds and things like that. If you have more than 6 hours, bless you. If you have 12, grow whatever you want. You may even have to put some shade up for some vulnerable plants. But on the 6 hours plus, do you see that most of those are either growing a fruit, like a cucumber is a fruit, or seeds? Those are the ones that you'd want to put in your sunniest places. And then if you get you have other areas that are 4 to 6 hours, you grow more leaves and roots in those places. Honestly, you're going to have to rotate next year and put things in different places to avoid the disease buildup. But maybe you'll have that 6 hour area and you can do tomatoes, you can sort of move them along that 6 hour area. And we'll talk about rotation in a future class. And then 3 to 4 hours, you can do leafy things. Peas are okay in 3 to 4 hours. They would like a lot more sun, but they'll do okay. If I had only 3 to 4 hours, I would definitely experiment with what can grow there. And if you have the desire and the energy, I would sign up to garden somewhere else, and I'll tell you where. So you can do it in both places. I'll tell you where you might be able to do that. One thing to keep in mind is sometimes we'll grow things, leafy things like kale in the shade, and they never seem to wilt because it's not sunny, so we kind of forget to water them. And dry rooted plants are actually vulnerable to powdery mildew, which looks like you dusted it with flour. And then somebody says, oh, that's mildew. And you go, oh, it's too wet. I better cut back my watering. But it's actually dry roots that make them very vulnerable. So I would water the roots of your plant and not just right next to the stem. You want to water out and keep that moist by putting mulch over it so that it doesn't dry out, and be nice to those plants because they're going to be taking a long time to grow. Does anybody want to tell me I'm completely wrong and you grow tomatoes in 3 hours of sun? People can grow the plants, but if your tomatoes aren't fruiting, that might be the problem. Maybe your front yard's your best spot. These wouldn't have been online if they weren't amazing, right? But the one on the right, I bet nobody knows that that's food. You know, people walking by. Not that you would need to hide it, but it's fine to put them. There's a tremendous amount of food in front yards, and it doesn't all have to look all that spectacular. If you have neighbors or a housing rule that says you need to have order at all times, you can make some edging on it or, otherwise constrain it so it looks, it's called evidence of care, that you're showing that even when the beds are empty, they have a purpose. And this is just rectangles of lawn removed. And this is looking its worst because it hadn't been mowed in a month. But those are all just coming out of rectangles. And even at its shaggy chaos, it's orderly enough to put in the front yard. And if you are very, very artistic and you really need it to be designed, this is an interesting book by Nikki Jabor. You can either be totally inspired or have the wind taken out of your sails because your place doesn't look like that. My place looks like rectangular holes in the ground with food growing out of them, and everybody who walks up or works next door on the roof or whatever says, "That's a beautiful garden." So it's the food, it's the food coming out of there that looks so pretty. But anyway, well, say something. Somebody talking?
No, I just think it's great.
Oh,
Food
cool.
grown in the front yard for people to walk by and see. It's inspiring.
Oh, that's nice. Oops. Okay, so what if you don't have any space at all? Or if you just want some more space, you need a pea patch. Hey, somebody here must have a pea patch, also known as a community garden. Can you tell us what that is? Somebody be bold and tell us.
I have one, Rock
Thanks,
Creek
Kim.
Community Garden. And it is a space where the beds are already there and the soil's already there, the tools are there, and bring your seeds and plant. And then I give 3 hours a month to help the owner out with any of her projects or harvesting, and sometimes deliver food to Helpline for her and meet a lot of great gardeners in the process.
Oh, that's something. You learn from other gardeners too,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and Anita, that's Anita, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anita is very informative, right?
Yeah,
And
totally.
thank you, Kim. Oh, sorry.
I was the first time veg gardener last year, and she helped me out a ton. So it was fun.
That is wonderful.
Yeah.
That's really great. And she said you have been tremendously helpful.
Oh, she's
So,
kind. It
and
was a good partnership. So, and I
oh,
think
that's
she just sent out a note this week. So she may have some availability. You might be speaking to that later, but yeah, she was
oh,
great to
yeah.
work with.
Yeah, she is. Yes. And yeah, I think she called your work transformative. So, huzzah. Good for you and inspiring. And she was happy that you were inspired to garden.
It's a beautiful place. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's Rock Farm when we get to that. And I actually didn't call her about openings. I always do, but I didn't this time. So word is there's an opening, which is good. That's terrific. Thank you. I'm looking down because that's where your picture is right now.
So, quick question
Yep.
with regards to the rock farm.
Hmm.
You don't pay if you work 3 days a week to help the farmer?
If you're donating all the food to Helpline, you don't pay, but otherwise there is a fee. And
Oh,
actually, she didn't mention what the fees are, so I can't really quote that for you. But
Um, I have it on the resource page. There's a big table with all of the pea patches everywhere that I can find. And the numbers on there, I think it's still accurate. I picked it up in conversation with her recently. So,
perfect. Yeah.
yeah. So you do pay almost all pea patches, you pay for whatever reason you're growing, but In Rock Farm, specifically, if you're growing exclusively for the food bank, then you don't have to pay because she does over a ton of food every year. The person who owns it does over a ton of food from that to Helpline. Am I right, Kim? Is that accurate?
That's accurate. Yeah. I think she was about 1,400 pounds this last summer.
That's great.
Yeah.
So there are lots of them, and I'm just paging through. I should have done this while you were talking, I guess. Anyway, that's Rock Farm on the left. Johnson Farm is in roughly the middle south of Bainbridge. There are a couple of them downtown. So here they all are. Rolling Bay, fairly new. Battle Point has one you probably walked by. If you're not on the island, Robb Park in Pulsbo has one. So there are lots of them. There's a big one in Bremerton. There's one just for Kingston. You have to live in Kingston to do this one, and it's an interesting co-op because they do eggs and other stuff. There's also a private one called the Farmer and Gardeners Guild, and you don't have your own little plot. You might decide, like one of the rows of these foods might have been planted by one gardener who was curious, and then another one would be planted by somebody else, and somebody else has a different patch of corn, and then people kind of share it. It's free form. She's very open to whatever your ideas are, but she also wants you to show up and do the work. So, yeah.
And she's on the island?
Yeah, that's Heidi Madden. Yeah, it's on the chart as well. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Let's see. This one, you will take home little bits of food from this, but what you really get out of this is hands-on learning from John Chang, who grows thousands of pounds, 4,000 pounds typically in a year of produce for local food banks. And this year it all went to Helpline House. And the schedule is really flexible. And, what you take home from this experience is like little treats, like you strip the garlic and then you can take a couple home. So does anybody work for John? John Chang? No? You can say, I want to come every Tuesday, or call me when you're in a panic, or I'm only going to come when you text, do a text string and I feel like it. You can be quite flexible. But we need more pea patches. If anybody knows anybody who's complaining about she doesn't know what to do with that lot that she owns next door, if you're ambitious and you'd like to put a pea patch in, we can connect you with people like Anita Rockefeller, who has a pea patch, and she can tell you how to do it. People also have informal arrangements. I know some people who, and I've done this actually in other slightly related scenarios, you basically walk by, you're walking around your garden and you see your neighborhood and you see somebody who has a partially attended garden, right? And they're out there and you start chatting and you say, I'm going to ask you a weird question, and go ahead and say no, but can I share crop this garden with you? And I know a guy who grows all of his veg and tons of fruit and dries things and ferments things, and he does not have his own garden. He's always doing it on somebody else's. So there are a lot of informal arrangements. I encourage you to cold call somebody in their front yard. So now you know how to find your son and where to find a garden if you don't have it, but then what kind of beds are you going to have? This is Rock Farm still, and you can see there are wood beds. There's a stock tank right here. It's a stock watering tank and pavers and all kinds of stuff. So in order to be called a raised bed, it should be at least a foot high. If it's not that high, it doesn't get the benefits of a raised bed. So you might have wood around it, but it's like 3 inches tall. That's really still an in-ground bed. A raised bed warms up a little quicker in the spring. I find here it's not dramatic because our spring air is so cool anyway. And it drains better. It drains a little bit better if you tend to have, pretty soggy soil. It drains that bed. It doesn't drain the soil below it any better, but those are some of the advantages. You can also control a hillside with raised beds, which is nice. So we're going to talk in-ground beds and raised beds. So with raised beds, you can have really super raised beds. And the advantage here, of course, is that you don't have to bend over, and you could do this if you use a wheelchair. You want super sturdy cedar materials, or I don't know, steel or something, because soil's heavy and it rots wood. So the bottom should be screwed on, the legs should be thick, etc. You get the idea. This is not a bed for tomatoes, but strawberries, lettuce, and herbs would like it because it's shallow. They're okay in a shallow bed. These raised beds, we want to again use cedar, make them at least 12 inches high. They've got a support post in the corner. And these things are supposedly going to last 6 or 7 years for a cedar raised bed. Now, in a minute, we're going to get your actual real life experience with them. But here is, that is one of my favorite things to do. On Baker Hill, somebody took their bank near, that's out in the really sunny part right next to the ditch near the road, and they put beds in it. And I've seen even steeper ones like this where it controls and the hill, and if you just had a slope, the water would just run off it, your carrot seeds would end up in at the bottom. So it's obviously a great way to do it. Does anybody have experience with raised beds? Yeah, go Katrina. I'm not seeing everybody.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have.
And how old are they?
Gosh, I think they're going on 10, at least 10 years. And
they're
I
holding up?
still haven't had to replace cedar yet.
Nice.
But it's starting to look like that day is not far away.
Well, that's good that they made it 10 years. Yeah. Are you in the phase of don't touch it, don't ask, don't tell? I'm not digging down there.
I've heard that, that juniper wood lasts better than cedar does.
Oh, cool.
It's also it's a weed, across a lot of the western US, so you can get it at all. It's relatively cheap and you can feel good about it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So have you ever been able to find it, or do you just order it online and get it shipped in?
They sold it over at Dunn Lumber a few years ago when I put in raised beds here, but I haven't looked for, I'm not quite sure how many years that was, maybe 7 years or so. But they had some then. It was like
sorry.
2x8s and 2x10s and kind of almost random, but and quite rough, with knots and things, but it's held up very well.
Oh, that's terrific. That's really great.
So, Dunn Lumber over in Seattle. Yeah.
Carol, there's a question in the chat about, let's see, community gardens and chemicals. Do community gardens or pots prevent the use of pesticides, fungicides, and herbicides?
What to pesticides?
Do these community gardens or plots prevent the use of pesticides, fungicides, and herbicides?
Many do. Anita is all organic, right?
Yeah, she's all organic.
And I think you should ask them. Maybe I should, well, you're going to ask them. I'm not going to do all the research. But yeah, I know many of them do not allow anything that isn't certified organic. So there are some pesticides that are organic, like diatomaceous earth is considered acceptable on organic produce. But I would ask them at the time when you call them. Oh, and those also, the pea patches might have a very long waiting list. But if you get on now and then say it takes you 2 seasons to get on, 2 years, you will be happy then. And if you don't get on 2 years from now, you will be sad. So just get on there. And sometimes, there are 16 people and 15 of them drop off the list. So it could definitely help you.
I just wanted to add something if I could interject. I did paste in the chat that I have built new raised beds and I used a sodium silicate as a preservative for the inside of my beds. And so that's for all of the parts of the raised beds and my compost bins where that touches the soil. And then the outside just has regular stain on it to make it pretty.
Neat. Thank you. I thought these were interesting. You can then take your beds apart quite easily. The end of each board fits in here. So this is one board goes here and then one board goes here, and that's the corner of a bed. And you can stack them too high and then stack more boards in there. If this is the corner of a bed, then these are not occupied. You can also run a piece of rebar, like a 5-foot piece of rebar down the middle, or 18 inches, whatever it is you require to maybe stabilize it. I just thought they were curious. There's a steel one. A big, big investment, but these people apparently plan to stay there. If I had much more lumber down on my property than cash, and I really wanted raised beds, I would use whatever I had. So these people have used poles. I would not use wood. Let's see if I can get that back. I wouldn't use wood pegs to hold them. You have to put them inside and outside. I would use rebar myself because here wood just rots off really fast. Sorry. We're going to talk now about in-ground beds, talk about money saving. You just start digging in the ground. These are still considered in-ground even though they have borders. This has borders because it's a public pea patch and they want to tell you, where you can dig and where you can't. But here, this person just took some soil out, like the best soil off the top, and piled it on top of the soil that was right there. And so they just did this, and then they put chips in, they made pathways, and they're going to grow food on that. And here, the lawn has been removed, and it's very rectilinear. I can tell you, these are, it's not even looking its best, but the lines are very straight. And all that has happened is that the lawn was removed and compost and fertilizer was turned into the beds.
So question on that.
Yeah.
If you were to just pile dirt on top of the lawn, would it decompose or would it stay there forever?
It wouldn't stay there forever, but at the edges, it kind of has an advantage because the soil's not very deep, right?
Right.
And so it's going to grow in at the edges, and then that's going to photosynthesize and put runners further in. Some people put cardboard absolutely everywhere and in an area. And part of that's going to be beds and part of that's going to be pathways. So like maybe this area is just cardboard, like triple layers with no gaps, they have to be overlapping rather than abutting each other, and just tons of cardboard. And then you can put soil, just, raised beds soil that you can put here, and then chips for pathways. And if it's very thick and it's on top of the cardboard, then you can have a garden that didn't require digging. And it also doesn't require building. These will be slightly sloped, but I have beds that are kind of like this. I mean, these beds, if I add some compost to them, they can be 4 to 6 inches taller than the surrounding, and I can make the tops flat, which I actually prefer because the water can get in better. I see 17 messages in the chat. Are we getting all those?
This one about stock tanks and leaching, galvanized stock tanks. Is that a concern?
I don't have galvanized stock tanks. I have read both. I think on the resource page, I have one article that says it's not really a problem, but I've talked to engineers who say that it is, and I don't have a definitive answer. But John McInnes, you have stock tanks, don't you? Maybe John's not here right now.
Couldn't get to the mute thing. Yes, I do.
Oh, hi.
And I haven't had a problem with them leaching. Maybe they do. I don't know. I like you, I've read both ways.
Yeah.
It's the zinc that you're concerned about then?
It's that it's supposed to be pure zinc, but there are sometimes contaminants in the zinc.
Ah,
Now, someone did post in the chat that, yes, my understanding is galvanized tanks leach. They are no longer at Rock Farm, by the way, only cedar beds, only cedar
Okay.
raised beds.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm taking the Master Gardener course right now,
Hmm.
and they discourage the galvanized tanks, for what it's worth
Yeah.
in that.
The
So,
way I
Yeah.
look at it, because I also have farm property with cattle and stuff. I mean, the cattle's been drinking out of them for years and years and years, and so I kind of look at it, that way that
Yeah.
if there was a big problem with them, then none of the cattle operation would be using galvanized tank.
Okay. I appreciate all that input. So how are we going to get rid of the lawn? First of all, if you are going to dig your lawn out like these people have done, and then they put a bed back here, and then they're digging out for another bed, first get rid of the taprooted things and the things with fibrous roots that crawl about. So weeds like this that are not grass, you want to dig those out and get those roots out. And then you can cut around a section and shove shovels underneath if you want to, and then roll it up and compost it, or turn it upside down and pile it up and make sure no grass is showing in that pile, right? You want to like overlap everything and let that rot for like a year, and you will have a nice pile of composty soil. And then you can plant in here. I actually do it slightly differently. I cut this into smaller pieces and I pick it up by its grassy hair and smash it against the shovel edge to knock all the soil off, and then I throw it off into a pile. So then you can plant on top of it. You can also, you don't have to put a raised bed there. You can plant directly in this soil after you amend it. So that's the cardboard thing we were talking about, except it should be way out from the edges of the beds or the grass will get in there. Tips for beds: no wider than 4 feet, because look, you have to reach the middle and you're not supposed to walk in your beds. So you want to be able to reach inward. We're going to fill it all the way. This person had a lot of waste of the depth of this person's bed because they thought, oh, well, I'm going to fill it up to within 6 inches of the top. And then it settled another 6 inches. And not only did they have that wasted space, now that is shading the plants, like, because our sun is quite low for a portion of the year. So fill it up and it will settle down. And you put your climbers and tall plants on the north ends of beds. So the south is over to the right and the sun gets to hit all the short ones. And then the north ends get the sun. You can also plant north-south. If you're going to have a big long row of something, you can plant north-south. It'll get great of something tall. It'll get great sun exposure on both sides, but it's also going to shade. If it's tall, it's going to shade a lot to the west and a lot to the east. So that's why I put them in the back. Works for me, but you might hear otherwise. Your paths should be wide enough for kneeling if you're going to kneel in them, which you're probably going to end up kneeling. See, this guy is illustrating that he would either have to put his knee into the bed or have his ankle being injured by this board that's back there. So yeah, you want to have enough space to get a wheelbarrow in there. And they say turn the wheelbarrow around. I don't probably have that much space, but I can dump the wheelbarrow and then sort of spin it vertically spin it around on its front wheel and get out again. And I think it's a good idea to keep your garden size flexible. This is flexible because if they decided they wanted a bigger garden, they could move those stones and cut into the lawn and scooch the fence over. They haven't paved all the way around it like some people do. And I think it's nice to be able to expand your garden if you find that you want to. What people sometimes do is they have a teeny tiny garden and then they decide, oh, but I want corn and I want pumpkins, and they jam it in too close and then it doesn't succeed and they feel like they're kind of, embarrassed that they're not very good gardeners, and then they say gardening didn't really work out for me. But it's really that you need space. You need to be able to space your plants out. You can also grow in containers. This is just be imaginative about what containers you use. Those are dryer drums. These are on 2x4s and not being held up by the fence, but they're just tacked to the fence or screwed to the fence just so they don't tip forward. The 2x4s are holding up these pots. I I like this one because some places get a lot of sun, but it's only on the fence, right? In the spring and the fall, because the house shades all the way up to the base of the fence. And tips for if you are going to grow in containers, they need holes in the bottom. I had a friend who was so mad at me because she drowned her tomatoes and I didn't tell her they needed holes in the bottom of the containers. They are going to need more frequent watering, and we fertilize a pot because it's very contained. We fertilize with a balanced soluble organic fertilizer, so it dissolves in water. So you go ask at a garden center and get one of those. And we typically you do it once a week, but some people do it once every 2 weeks, or they use just a little tiny bit several times a week. The bigger, the deeper, the better in many, many cases. They say tomatoes can grow in a 5-gallon, and they can, but they're going to be smaller and less successful. So 10 to 20 to even 30 gallons is great for a tomato. And lettuce and strawberries and herbs can grow in shallow, relatively shallow, but see, that's 9 inches. That would be ideal. People can do it in 5 inches or something, but it's better if it's 9-inch deep. That's still considered shallow. So now we got where to find your sun, where to put your beds, what kind of beds, what kind of containers. You know what? Oh, and you can also do in-ground beds, right? So now we're going to talk about what do you put in the bed. You have this thing, and it's either bare ground that it looks like subsoil and doesn't have very many appealing qualities to it, or it's an empty box. So we have 2 kinds of beds. So for in-ground beds, in-ground, I mean, you're just going to use the soil that's there and you're going to amend it. So you're going to take the plants out, and then on the soil, you're going to put in balanced organic granular fertilizer. This is a good one. But, by balanced, I don't mean that the 3 numbers on the front have to be even. It could be a 462, as long as it's not 100 or something like that. You can ask about it, but vegetable fertilizer. And I think it's great to, especially when you're doing a very new bed on soil that you pulled lawn off of and you discover that it sort of looks gray and it doesn't really look very soily, I would say it's fine to put 4 inches of compost in there. What I see people err, the way I see them err is they go and they buy these 2 bags of compost and they're like, this is really heavy. It's probably going to cover it in 4 inches. And they put it down and it's like barely a half an inch on that soil that was not good to begin with, or not very organic to begin with. I would say I see people short the soil. I'm telling you, very generous amount is 4 inches, but I want to get you off to a good start. And sometimes people say, I think that's 2 inches, but you put your finger in and it's like, that's barely half an inch. So I would say, just make sure you're not shorting yourself on the compost. And then you can loosen the existing soil as deeply as possible by putting the fork as far down as you can get it. You stand on it, you put it in the ground and shove it with your foot, and then you can jump on it, stand on it, twist it around to get it down. And I would say pull back on it, and it just cracks the soil some. Some people say, no, never, don't touch soil ever. But it's going to take a very long time if you're a new gardener to turn subsoil into fertile soil if you only put stuff on top. If you put enough stuff on top, you could just plant in it like a raised bed. But if you're just putting some fertilizer and some compost, I would say you have the option to work it into the soil. But we do not want to pulverize the soil. We don't want to do anything more violent than necessary. No rototiller. Okay. Better get up there. Better get to the right spot. Okay. And then in the future years, you can put 1 inch of compost and fertilizer every spring, but eventually you're going to want to get a soil test. So people do this, they'll say, I've gardened for 30 years, never got a soil test. That's good. Good for you. But you may eventually want to get a soil test. Kim, are master gardeners saying everybody should get a soil test before they start a garden?
Yeah. And annually too.
Did you?
I will be. It's just now time. I didn't last year.
Yeah,
I was too late and I didn't know better last year. And
yeah.
fortunately, it worked out fine because the gal who had had the patch before me had done a good job. Um, but I will this year. Yeah.
Um, the reason I ask is for new gardeners, I want to get them going, and I do think you should get a soil test. But I think it's just another barrier to starting growing. So like you got going and you sort of, I think, really enjoyed it, right?
Yeah.
And then so that's why on here I say, you can just get going, but then let's get you a soil test to see what you need.
I
Yeah.
found out I had club root, so
Oh,
so much
right.
for the broccoli and the kale. So, I mean, it
Hmm.
was fine, but anyway, that would have helped, but it'll be fine.
It's a heartbreaker, but
Yeah.
yeah,
I bought
there's
a
a lot of
soil
other stuff you can grow.
I bought a
I
soil
will-
test years ago and it's still sitting here. So
Oh,
because once you start doing raised beds, you're not dealing with your native soil anywhere anyway. So other than on my raised beds, I have taken the bottoms out of all my tanks.
yeah.
So there is I guess on a really, really deep root plant, they might get to the native soil, but
Oh, but
what,
what you're testing, you can test anything. Farmers regularly test compost.
oh, I understand. But as that goes on and on and on, I tend to trust the compost and I just never use
Mm.
the test. But yeah,
Oh
it's a
yeah.
good idea.
Yeah.
You got
I
good
don't do it every
results,
year.
John?
Where do you go to take the soil to get tested?
You mail it. There is if it's not on there, A&L is a lab, and there are particular you have to dig down a little bit, and you need to use a stainless steel implement, like some spoon from your kitchen, and then get at least a pound of soil, and then you mail it to them.
Oh, a whole pound. Okay.
Yeah, they got new machines, and so they need more soil because they're better at testing now. Yeah, that's one of the testing sites. And Kim, if you have more testing sites that you want us to use, let us know. But that's what the county uses.
Yeah, that one sounds good. I think there's soil lab tests in Moses Lake but we haven't learned too much about others, so.
Oh, okay. All right.
I've used a place called Simply Soil Testing, which is, I think, in Burlington, someplace that, on this side where you can mail it.
Cool. Neat. Yeah, and if you want to do that before you put your garden in, you would get your soil test results back. Yeah. Email me if you get results and you can't interpret them, because I know somebody who can help you. Okay, if you have raised beds, you're gonna not use your garden soil. You're not gonna go, well, I have that pile of old soil over there that is just from when we put the pond in and it came straight out of the ground, so I'll put it in my raised bed. You can't do that. And you can't go to the forest and get that duff, because it's not what they need. They need a raised bed mix or a potting mix, because a raised bed is like a giant pot. So you're going to put that in and then work some balanced organic fertilizer into the top 8 inches gently. Add compost if needed. How do you know? Well, a lot of raised bed mix that's made in bulk from local composters around here, that has a lot of compost in it. But some bagged compost, if you ask at the garden center and you say, is this a rich raised bed mix? They might say it's a little lean. That means it doesn't have as much composty stuff really in it. And they might say you should get a little compost and put it in with it. So you can ask at the garden center. And then in future years, you're going to add at the beginning of your season a little bit of fertilizer, and I do an inch, maybe half an inch of compost on a raised bed every spring, because we need to replenish those nutrients. And do not pulverize your soil. You like it chunky. Okay, this is just to show you that buying in bags is expensive. Getting it delivered is a little bit less expensive, especially per yard, per unit. That's what these prices are. It's a little less expensive. If you buy like a whole truckload of 6 yards, then it's a lot less expensive, right? And if
Mhm.
you go pick it up yourself, you can get it for as little as 35. Um, DTG Olympic Organics in Kingston will give you a yard of what I think is very good compost. I've had very good experience with it. And you can also get raised bed mix from them. In it, I think it's just the straight compost is $35 for a yard of it. And how do you know how much you need? You can just put in compost calculator into the interwebs and it will ask you questions and do the calculation for you. There's also math you can do, but I'm going to save you time. I think the link's on the resource page. It does not have to be expensive to grow stuff. If you do it directly in the ground, you're going to get some friends to entertain you while you sit there and talk and take the lawn and weeds off of 3 4 by 8 foot rectangles in whatever soil you have near your place. So that's 3 4 by 8 beds. That's a pretty good garden. And I forgot to put in the money for buying your friend's pizza afterward, but you should do that. And then you're going to add some down to earth example fertilizer, and then borrow a truck, your neighborhood truck, and get yourself a yard of compost, and you can put lots of compost into that soil, and the whole thing will cost you $49. So you can spend hundreds of dollars on a garden, or potentially thousands, I suppose, but you can also spend not that much.
So,
The $35 is DTG Olympic Organics. What's up, Rick Saunders?
yeah, so I have another question on
Hmm?
on this area. I mean, if you're creating a raised bed, you
Mm-hmm.
really need soil there as well as compost, I think, right? I mean, you really don't want to plant your vegetables in just straight compost.
Yeah, I think I wasn't clear about this.
And so my question is, if I went to Tills
Yep.
and I tried to buy some dirt, some
Hmm.
soil, what do they have? Because they can't just keep creating dirt. It's something you kind of have to dig up somewhere.
Um, no,
Mhm.
raised bed mix is not garden dirt
Okay.
because raised beds are big pots. They need to drain better than garden dirt drains. It's weird when you stack it up, it doesn't drain that well. And when it has boards around it. So like mineral dirt, um, is not the thing we put in the beds. What they have is when you go to a compost producer, they often have a raised bed mix. It
Mhm.
is their compost, sandy loam topsoil from somewhere else that they actually get, and that does have soil in it, and extra sand for drainage. Quite often that's what that is.
Okay.
So they are getting it and like adding it in. So
So,
that's true. And I'm not saying you fill a raised bed with compost. I'm saying you get raised bed mix, which is what I just described, either in bags or from a local composter who makes it.
yeah, okay.
And there are compost sources. There's a whole table on the resource page that's compost sources.
So we have
Do
quite a
we?
few questions in the uh, uh, chat. Would you like me
Okay.
to go down through?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. John McInnes added that he considers 15 gallons to be the minimum, and then only for bush plants, not indeterminate
Oh,
plants.
thank you, John. That is what is in my heart. I was just trying to stick with, being moderate. That's for tomatoes, John was
Yeah,
saying, 15 gallons minimum, and not for indeterminate. Yeah,
yeah.
thanks. I'll
And then
change that actually.
Debbie says she fills her greenhouse raised beds with raised bed mix from Bay. Hey, good question mark. And
Oh, Debbie, is it working for you? I would say if it's working, go nuts. Is this Deb Rudnick?
Yeah, no, it's the other Debbie.
Oh, okay. Hi, other Debbie.
I I haven't planted it yet. This is the first year. I just built the greenhouse in the fall,
Oh, cool.
and I set up potting benches and grow lights and one indoor raised bed. So I'll let you know. I'll report back next
That's
fall.
neat. Well, did you ask him when you went to Beihei, to get it?
Yes, I did. So I bought
And
what they recommended.
okay, then it's
Yeah.
probably fine. They are specifically the people who've said to me, well, if you get that bed mix, why don't you get an extra compost because it's pretty lean. So if they didn't say that to you,
They did not.
okay, probably in good
Yeah.
shape. Or you can
But
say, I got this kind of bed mix. Do you recommend it? Just to check them
right, right.
if
And
you want.
you just recommended fertilizing. So I'll do that.
Yeah, fertilizing and yeah, there you go.
And do you like the
Some,
seaweed? Do you like seaweed fertilizer, Carol?
uh, I use a soluble seaweed and other things mix, fish mix. Um, who has a lot of experience with seaweed fertilizer? Are you talking about like kelp powder?
Max C seaweed formula is mentioned.
Oh, okay. So Maxi has some organic stuff in it. It doesn't happen to be if you're really a stickler for that. It's not entirely organic. It certainly gives that impression. Um, I've used it on some ornamentals and some pots in the past when I needed like immediate help. Um, I don't usually put it on the garden plants just because it's not my habit to do so. And I want to kind of maintain an organic system of microbes in my garden soil. So I'm not, you get to make the choice. I definitely think I have some in the bottom of a container still that I'm going to put on some ornamental plant that that needs a quick rescue. It's certainly quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see.
And it does give the impression that it's organic. We all tend to think that. They're not trying to lie or anything. It's just not entirely.
Mhm.
And the last
But
one is
it's
any advice on bulk compost or garden soil? I've heard mixed reports on tills. I've used tills for years and had very good luck with them. I've used A&L as well
okay.
for bulk, and I take my truck over and get it unless
Yes.
I need a lot, and then I put out the tarps in the driveway and have them drop a big load in there. And
Yes. It is perfectly acceptable to ask for 6 yards of compost for your birthday. So you want some manure or rotten stuff dropped in your yard.
and
When I said the soil test was A&L, I meant A&E, I think is the one. But um, yeah. Well, I use Olympic Organics, which is in Kingston lately. I like them. They test the heck out of it for herbicides, which can sometimes be a problem. And they're very careful about that and very sincere. So there you have two people who are happy with where they get their compost from.
Carol, didn't Olympic Organics, did it get bought out by
It
DTG or?
did. Yeah, it got bought out by DTG. It still is Olympic Organics. If you go to their website, it looks like a construction supplies company.
Yeah.
It was a rescue. They really needed a buyer and they didn't have a buyer, and they were apparently in danger of, not finding a buyer and needing to close. And DTG came in and said, we'll support you and we'll buy you. And so Margaret is still there, and she's the biggest compost nerd I've met, and she's just wonderful. And she pea assays all of the compost. When it's done, before she'll sell it, she grows peas in it for 3 weeks.
Wow.
And there are symptoms that you will see on the peas if there's clopyrrolid or aminopyrrolid in the compost, which are two herbicides that are really persistent. And so she makes sure they're not there before she'll sell it. So it seems like DTG was like predatory, but as I understand it, that's not true. Did you hear otherwise?
No, I was just confused. It's very confusing.
Yes,
As
especially
you say, it
since
looks like a gravel business,
yeah.
but then there's Olympic Organics, and I couldn't get any sense of what was going on.
Yeah, if you call their main number and ask for their number, or email me and I'll give you Margaret's number.
Okay.
She's going to retire in 8 months or so, but yeah.
Okay.
So do we all know the squeeze and poke test? You grab some soil and you squeeze it, and if you open up your hand and it falls apart completely, that's too dry. But if it stays squished together and you poke it and it just squishes, that's too wet. But if you poke it and it breaks into two, it cracks like into 2 or 3 pieces, that is good diggable soil. So you can dry your soil out right now, not all of your soil, but let's say you had like an 18 inches by 5 foot strip that you wanted to dry out and warm up in anticipation of peas, because we're going to plant them in a month, maybe at the end of the month. That the clear plastic, a piece of recycled, please don't get new plastic, placed over the top of that bed and held down by rocks will warm the soil. Clear plastic warms the soil. Black plastic does not. I can explain it sometime, and if you disagree, fight me. And we can warm the soil up and then keep the rain from getting into that patch. So if you want to do that just for that area, it's not great to lay plastic all over your garden and like suffocate your soil, but in this case, it's just temporary for a little while. You can hand till gently. That's how we support the soil structure a little bit. So you really don't have to stir your soil up. And if you're making compost for manure, you can ask me about the herbicides. How can we protect the beds so we know where they are, what we're filling them, what we're amending with? Now how you can protect the beds. I like sprinklers. If you don't have a fence, they keep the deer away, but John Fawcett, they don't keep the rabbits away, do they?
They do not. Those rabbits are pesky little critters.
Okay. Well, these are very adaptable, these faucets. You can move them all over and you can make them spray further or further to the left, further to the right, higher, lower. So they're great for deer if that's your problem. You can also make a little cage. This has helped me keep all the rabbits out except for one bit through the side of it. So you might make one of these experimentally and see if your rabbits are this clever. This is, I'll try to make this fast for people who've heard this 47 times. It's called remesh. It's short for reinforcing mesh for concrete. It is not this stuff on the right-hand side. It's not anything panel, livestock, hog, whatever panel. This is expensive as heck, very thick, unbendable, and heavy. Be careful that they're not guiding you to the livestock panels when you ask for remesh. Remesh, you can see, is thinner. It is less flexible than fencing, though, because fencing gets really easily deformed. This is welded wire, which John McInnes has all over all of his beds. This is welded wire mesh, and it's been turned into, by me, a tunnel by bending it. It's not spring-loaded. And then this is not bird netting, it's deer netting. It's heavier and it's more manageable, and you can tell where the end of it is. Like with bird netting, sometimes it's just, tangles and it makes little gaps and things. If you're going to do this, it helps if you have somebody to work at the other end at the same time. The netting goes all the way down to the ground, and it's held in place by being attached to this board. And the board ideally is attached to both ends of the wire here and here. This one is not right there. It should be to hold it down. So that's an option for covering. And so now you keep them safe. And now we're going to make you feel like a food growing genius in short order by using the right plant at the right time. Everything on the left tolerates cool weather. So these are our March, April, May start plants. They also can be started later in the year. Everything on the right does not like to be out in the cold at all, but they have very long growing seasons in many cases. Eggplants and tomatoes and peppers take a long time to get going, which is why we buy them at nurseries. If you're gonna start them indoors and like be your own nursery person, you're gonna need lights. Windows don't really work for these. You can tell me that that's not true on your windows, but for most people, window light is really not going to cut it. So the lights are another subject for another time. But if you're a brand new gardener, you might want to purchase these later. And by later, I mean like we'd put them out in May. So don't put your plants out too early, especially the heat lovers. And then we're not going to use national planting calendars. You know why? Because a national planting calendar often goes by the plant hardiness zones. See how we're pale yellow up here? You can see my cursor, right? Can't hear anything. Okay.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay. And so they start talking about pale yellow zone people should do such and such, but they're talking to these guys down here. So national calendars don't work. We want really local calendars. And these are two great ones. This one is graphical. And I would just say, if you use a calendar like this statement that you can still plant arugula in September means you can put it in the ground, it'll grow a little bit, and then it's going to go dormant. I don't want that to be your first experience growing arugula. I would like you to put it somewhere in the middle so that you can see it go like crazy and grow really successfully. So this is a little bit, there are caveats with the ends of those, but we can also use this one. I really like this one. So if you get queasy when people scroll, look away for a sec. I'll tell you when to look back. Okay, so here we are in April. This is Travis Sailing, and he has one of these for the main season, and also if you want to eat winter food all year long, he has another one. He says, like right here, start your eggplant inside right around April 1st. He gives me a day, or he'll say first half of February. And then if I want to mess around with that and plant in March or August, I can do that. But he tells me what works. Now, our climate is changing, so you may find that you can go earlier than the dates on these calendars. You can also choose Northwest adapted varieties, especially if you have warm weather crops. So corn and tomatoes and things like that need to be a variety that works well here. So we have so many adapted local seed producers, and they're on the resource page. You don't only have these, there is a link to even more. So there's a table that has a lot of these guys, but then there's a link to even more. Sometimes some of these are not local. High Mowings in Vermont, Johnny's is in Maine, Rare Seeds is in Missouri. If I do include them, usually it's because they're at the same latitude as we are, so they have some of the same challenges. And Rare Seeds just has seeds from absolutely everywhere. So I included them because some people say I get all my seed from Rare Seed, but there's stuff in Rare Seed that will not grow here. So you have to look for words like all of these words that refer to coolness and short season, and that they bear early and small number of days to maturity. So the way you know that is that plants are usually organized in a seed catalog from fast maturing to longer season maturing. And so you would compare the maturity dates, and it'll say like 90 days. So you'd pick the 90-day one instead of the 120-day one. We also want to give them the space that they need. I know what the person on the left did. They bought a 4-pack of cabbage and didn't have space for it and couldn't stand to kill them. So she crammed them all into that little box and is very proud of those cabbages. But if she'd given them space, they'd look like the thing on the right. So cabbages need like 18 to 24 inches between them in all directions. So why don't you do that, and then you'll feel like a genius. And just to reinforce that, these are actual drawings of actual roots in an experiment where they grew vegetables and then took a gigantic knife and cut into the soil and then drew the roots. So that's an onion on the left. Every box in the picture is 1 foot. So I'm not saying you need to put like carrots 3 feet away from each other, but if it says leave a foot between the rows, leave a foot between the rows and don't crowd them, because then you'll get nice big carrots. I'll give you an example right here. Look, planting, we've got Brussels sprouts, and we're planting them outdoors. And it says right here, every 2 inches, I'm supposed to plant them. And then we go out many weeks later and we go, oh, I know I'm supposed to thin these guys. They're 2 inches apart, but I don't know where the packet is and I can't be bothered to go inside. So I'm going to kill every other one. And now they're 4 inches apart. You go, I'm going to be brutal. I'm going to do it some more. And now they're 6 inches apart. And I'm going to do it more. And I've killed almost all of them. And now they're 8 inches apart. Well, look at how far apart they're supposed to be. 2 feet apart. And it matters. That thinning matters. The plan that plants have is make 1 billion babies and maybe a few of them will survive. So you're doing part of what is natural to plants when you thin. But it's also a reason that people like to start in little pots, because then you can just start 8 of them and plant them out and you don't have to kill them. Here's an example. Left side planted too close. Right side planted, those were about 2 feet apart. That's the same plant. So think of that when you're thinning or you're planting your plants out. Really look at the spacing. You don't have to do this thing where you have rows that are a few inches apart and then in between the rows is really big. You can average these. You add 3 feet to 6 inches and divide by 2. So down here it's 6 plus 36 divided by 2. And that gives you 21 inches. And then these are, you can plant them like this and save a little bit of space. And these are 21 inches on center. And we're going to keep them happy. We're going to mulch them. We're going to water them. That's basically what it is. Chopped leaves are great for mulch. So if you have any leaves left over, like in the corners of your garden or piles, or I have massive piles, then keep them. You can run over them with your lawnmower if you want. And you can also feel successful by not having all of your lettuce mature at exactly the same time. So instead of planting it all at once, we're going to plant a little bit of chard and a little bit of carrots and a little bit of lettuce. And then the next month, we're going to do a little bit more lettuce. And the chard will still be maturing and the broccoli and the carrots will. But especially with things like lettuce or like green onions or maybe spinach and things like that, even to some extent beets, but they have a longer growth period, you can plant just what you need for the next month. And you do that every month. And then this is not 4 different beds. This is one bed that changes over time because something comes out, something new goes in, something comes out, something new goes in. So that's called succession planting. So these are things that you can do now. You know what? I'm going to back up. Are there any more questions, John, or any comments that anybody wants to make?
Hang on, let me look. Do you recommend the book Seattle Till's Maritime Northwest Garden Guide, planting calendar?
Yeah. Yes, it's very good. I think so. Everybody tell me what you think. I think it's a good invitation and it's comforting. They have one of those graphical planting calendars, and I would be wary of the ends of the seasons in there. Oh, no, that's not what they have. Sorry. Well, they say, here's what you can plant this month. And in September, they're saying you can plant these things, but be aware that that's the end of the season for that thing. So I would like page through and find what is the middle of the season or what is, just a little bit early, just before the middle of the season for my planting opportunities for this plant. And I would, just for success's sake, so you feel good, not do it at the end of the season. I mean, you can do it as an experiment, but that wouldn't be like, I wouldn't invest all my self-esteem in that. Give me other opinions about this guide. What do you think, y'all? No one wants to tell us. That's okay. What else, John? Anything else? Oh,
I was just going to say, I think it's great. I like it.
that's cool. What do you love about it?
Well, it's organized in a nice way, for the whole year, and we know it's from the Northwest, so we can trust that it's got the climate right. And also it's at my level.
Yes, I really like that. I don't need it to be for anybody, it to be like extra hard to read or something, right? It's so inviting. And also the people at Tilth are geniuses. They have a hotline. Do we all know this?
No.
You can call it and ask them any question. They're so good.
Oh, is that right?
Yes. They will also read your soil test with you and tell you what to do.
Got a
So,
question about rabbits. How do we keep them out of the garden?
those covers that I showed help me keep rabbits out of my garden, but I would test one with your rabbits. I wouldn't like make 20 of them and hope it works. How else does everybody keep them out of the garden?
I haven't had them jump into my stock tank raised beds at all.
They're really
They're too
tall. Yeah, tall
well,
raised
they're
beds.
2 foot, so they're around the garden all the time. But
Uh-huh.
dogs chase them out and that type of thing. But I've never had them jump in.
And
Now
you don't
I do put domes over some of them, not to keep the deer out from eating if the deer get in there.
mm,
But certain things like rhubarb, like onions, like green beans, snap peas, and that type of stuff have no top on it. I've never had a rabbit in them.
yeah. Yeah, you don't have to make it impossible for the rabbit to get in. You just have to make it harder than the neighbor's garden, right? So they go off somewhere and eat somewhere else.
I just use chicken wire or small wire and put it right all the way down. I use wood chips every place on my property, so I actually bury that wire down into the wood chips a little bit,
Mm.
and seems to work. Um, but I just see rabbits all the time.
Does,
In the garden, they're not in the garden where I have it dug into the bottom and
Hmm.
then 7 feet tall. They don't get in there, but there's other places we have that we see lots of rabbits.
A lot of people do have recently, like they already had a fence, but it wasn't rabbit proof, and then they've put 4 feet of chicken wire or some kind of wire around that at the base of
Yeah.
that fence, unfortunately.
Now, I have grass between my raised beds and a lot of clover in it. I always see the clover being eaten off, and I have to assume it's the rabbits. They seem
Yeah,
to
the
really
rabbits
like
are.
clover, so I kind of figure they're after that versus what's in my raised beds.
I've seen a lot. Yeah, they eat the high protein things, which means they'll eat the other legumes. Clover's a legume, so they'll eat peas and beans.
That's
Yeah.
what I noticed them eating the clover too. So instead of pulling it up and area, considering it a weed, I just leave it, and that makes a big difference.
Yeah, they'll eat a lot of things like, oh, they're vetch. There's vetch out there too that's like, it's also a legume. It's a nitrogen fixer and it has a lot of protein in it. That's interesting. For my peas, I can't put like one of those covers over that I showed you. So I do make a fence around the peas that's like a foot and a half out on all sides and just use stakes and keep that fence around it. And it's open at the top so the peas just grow up the top.
so,
It's a
so how
pain.
tall, how tall does that fence need to be around the peas?
Well, mine happens to be left over it a small mesh, so they can't climb it. I don't know, I don't think they'd climb chicken wire, but mine is about, I think it's like 3 feet, and they
Mhm.
don't bother to go in there. I have watched a rabbit climb a very tall fence, but that was my pet rabbit who wanted to get out. They'll climb a wire fence and fling themselves over. But I think we just have to make it inconvenient for them. So those are some ideas. Sorry, we don't have, the maximum security rabbit compound for you. So
My dog,
Oh,
sorry.
your dog?
My dog, he chases the rabbits out, but he won't hurt them. If he
Mhm.
gets close to one, he pretends he can't see it because he's not sure what to do with it.
Oh,
But it does keep the rabbits out.
get a dog. Borrow your neighbor's dog, maybe.
There
That
you
is why
go.
I don't have deer anymore because my neighbor bought a 150-pound dog.
Well, I have two dogs, and they walked right by a rabbit here not too long ago who was just sort of sitting there perfectly still, and until they got downwind of it, they didn't even know it was there.
Oh my goodness. Here's some things we can do now. And call out things that we could do now when you look at this, if you don't see them on here. They're basically the things that we went over today. If you got the newsletter that I just sent, I said pull your root crops out. because they're starting to resprout, and they're growing from the sugars of the delicious beet. So they're using up the food you want to eat. And then you're going to top them by cutting the stems down to like 1/2 inch, but don't cut the top of the beet or carrot. And then gently rinse them off, chill them in the fridge, get them all the way cold. Maybe put a towel around them to absorb condensation and shove them in a perforated bag. And they will keep for, I've had carrots keep for months. And you know about this stuff in the lower corner, right? This is kale rabe. It's like broccolini, and it will come off of kale, famously. But I've also had it from Brussels sprouts. Brussels sprouts, it's more just leaves, not blossoms. And I've had it come back from a cabbage, base of a cabbage, and it's tender shoots coming up that are also not flowers, and they're delicious. And we all know this because I've had gardeners who live here who've lived here forever, and they go, "Oh, I didn't know anything about that." So it's a good, what's called the hungry gap, when there's nothing coming in from your garden and you also run out of all your preserved foods. And then we can plant peas. Did you know there's a Bainbridge Fruit Club? We have what's up?
I was just going to say, for any of you who are adventurous and want a very interesting seed catalog, let's see if I can get this here.
Wait a minute. I have to stop sharing, right?
No, well.
Oh, well, I am stopping sharing.
Yeah, for some reason, it won't pick up the whole thing. It just never does when I try to do this. That's not what I wanted to do. There we go. Whole seed catalog. You can get it at TNC, and it is like, oh my gosh.
Is that
it's
Baker
like a
Creek?
Christmas wish book. No, it's $15.
But it's Baker Creek, right?
It's Baker Creek, yep,
Yeah.
out of Missouri. And it is like a coffee table book with the species, the different varieties of things that you can find in here. And there's a lot of information that they in the descriptions. So I stumbled upon this last year, and starting in December, I went into TNC almost every day to see if they had a copy, and they did in January. So
you bought me one as a present. Thank you so much.
I did. They're pretty. I bought several of them and gave them away because they're just so fun to look at.
But
They're really cool.
So do
So
those
now
seeds grow around here?
I'm going to listen to you in just a second. What are you asking?
Would the seeds from that catalog, would very many of them grow around here?
Those are the ones, that's the seed catalog that I said. They have seeds that are local to everywhere in all these different seeds. And so you'll read one and it says it's from the hottest deserts in Arizona. And then you'll read another one that says this has good, cool soil emergence. Yeah. So you really have to look for them. And they don't have the detail. I mean, they have a lot of detail like about the history of it, but they don't always have the detail about whether it's going to work perfectly for you. Like Johnny's will be very specific, it's resistant to these things. But they do have local stuff.
So one of the things my wife and I like to do is to grow stuff that's a challenge for us. So we'll try to grow things that we can't necessarily grow in this climate. And if anything comes from it, it's a success. Heck, it's a success no matter what happens, because we usually learn something from the event.
Yeah, it's an experiment, and the answer is nope. Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I really try to have a challenge every year. That's cool. So, but Bainbridge Island Fruit Club is fantastic. They're starting to do more community projects to like have fruit for the food bank and preserve heirloom trees on public property and things like that. They've done that for quite a while, actually. But the food bank stuff is new. And they meet in person, and they have tastings, and they have grafting events. You can go to the event, buy rootstock, cut it off, get it grafted, and have multi-fruit tree at the event. So I would sign up, and it is if you're into it. I have very little tree fruit, but I just regard myself as Bainbridge Island Fruit Club's worst member, and they welcome me. So they don't hold it against you. So, it's bifruit.club is their page. And they also have a Facebook page that's linked through there. And I think that's on the resource page as well. And can I just recommend that we all plan to grow a lot of extra in our garden to share with our food banks, because They are heitan, as we said in the 90s. And you, probably many of you who are here, grew a lot of food last year because we asked you to grow for the food bank. And it was beautiful. And it was really wonderful. And I don't even know how many pounds we got because it was the only poundage I know about are people who actually told me when I asked, tell me how many pounds. And a lot of people said, I have no idea, but I went every week and gave them food. Or, there are a lot of people growing extra last year because of the call for Grow for Helpline. I know people were doing it before, but they grew more. Like John, didn't you grow like 1,200 pounds of food?
I think I got to 1,900 pounds, but that included some tree fruits. But they have from the garden about 1,200, 1,300 pounds, something like that.
And John is not on Bainbridge. He was actually giving to other North Peninsula food banks. So well done, you all. This is pretty amazing that you did that. Next time, we're going to talk about the fact that your soil is leading a secret life. And it's a field trip into the very tiny. And we'll talk about what's going on in there and how to support it. So I like those critters in there. It's very busy, even now. Do we have any more comments, or you want to tell me something I said was baloney, or anything like that?
I have a question, of course.
Ooh, I like it, Rick. Thanks.
I'm wondering if maybe next week would fit in, you could talk some about actively aerated tea, compost tea, and whether anybody has actually done that and if it's worked out for them. I tried to do it and it didn't really work for me, but I think I didn't have the right stuff to inoculate it. That is, I didn't have the right compost.
Yeah, as I understand, it's pretty particular, right?
I don't know. Yeah.
Does anybody here do aerated tea and it's really your project? I wonder if we could get somebody to talk about that. I will look into it.
I'm actually going to be giving a talk at the Flower and Garden Show about microbes and growing for your gut microbiome. And I have theoretical information about compost teas and mycorrhizal, but I've never actually done it myself.
Do you want to tell us about it? Or
basically, all I know is that you'd get about a gallon size amount of compost from your compost bin and stick it in a mesh bag like what you can get from the grocery store, and you stick it in a 5-gallon bucket, fill it up with water, throw it in your aquarium tank aerator, and let it go overnight. Minimum 24, actually it's like 12 to 24 hours. And then if you add a little bit of molasses, you're going to skew your compost tea towards your annuals and vegetables. But if you add more kelp mixes, then you skew the batch to support trees and shrubs. And that you want to use it within 24 hours.
Yeah, I think
after you make it.
I think that's something that some people forget to do, is to use it
right away. Yeah.
Immediately. They'll go get it from somewhere and then they just
sit it around,
leave it out and things like that. Yeah.
No, and just to use it liberally, and you could have several 5-gallon buckets set up and it's just ready to go.
That's great. Cool.
Do we know anything about using nematodes and whether or not we recommend them with, trying to make sure that they don't parasitize ground-dwelling bees?
Oh.
Well, different nematodes do a lot of different things, which I bet you know more about than I do. But there are.
I know you can buy different brands and varieties depending on which bacteria are associated with the nematode. But it all sort of seems like snake oil to me.
Do you look at Arbico products?
That's the one product that I have been recommending to people, but I don't know anything really about it.
I know a farmer who recommended it, and I have used it to rescue plants from cabbage root maggot.
Mhm.
And I don't know about ground dwelling bees nematodes. My question would be, is that the same nematode? Because we've got nematodes that eat our plants, and then we have nematodes that eat the nematodes that eat our plants, and they're really not the same critter.
I guess I'm just referring to the ones that one would purchase at the garden center.
Yeah, but you can, well, yes, right. They're not going to have the ones that eat your plants, right?
Right.
But there are different varieties, like even in Arbico, there are different products, I think, right? I don't
think they're
remember because I
just
haven't looked at it for a
two.
couple of years. Katrina's nodding. Arbico has
Y-
different nematode
Yeah,
strains.
they make a lot of different ones now. And I've used a few and they've really been miraculous.
Did you rescue a plant that was infected by something else?
Cabbage, and then had really root weevils. And I think they'd probably just gotten out of hand for years and years and years. And I used that and it was just amazing.
So
So,
those are
but I
specific to,
wonder, in the bigger picture, what kind of effect it seems like after they've consumed, for instance, whatever they're targeting, that they would just die. And I don't know.
Well, to the best of my knowledge, they are going to die out when it gets cold.
Uh-huh.
yeah.
And they also require moisture. So you really only have this window of roughly March to July
Mm-hmm.
to apply them, and then maybe September.
And you have to keep the soil moist.
Exactly.
You have to be very fastidious. Yeah. But the original question is, do those nematodes sold by Armico attack ground bees? Do they also, because it's quite a different environment, but they could get in there. Is that what you're saying, Grace, originally?
Well, I know that the different symbiotic bacteria that they use in these formulations are focusing on, grubs and cutworms and things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
larvae, I just don't know if they would affect um, any larvae for ground dwelling bees because we don't want to destroy those either.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're saying you're at, with the nematodes as the vector, um, you're concerned about the symbiotic bacteria affecting the bees.
Right, because it's the symbiotic bacteria that are doing the
Yeah, the
dissolving of the
job. Yeah.
of the
Yep.
pests.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I just don't know. I mean, everybody says, "Oh, it's great for it doesn't hurt pollinators." I'm like, "Well, how the heck do I know?"
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I'm really suspicious in general
Well, good for
because I don't
you. Huh.
know. Like people, everybody's got their snake oil claim that this is the best product
Yeah.
ever, and I'm like, I don't know that. Prove it to me.
Interesting. So I can tell whether or not it's effective, but I don't know if it kills my ground dwelling bees. Hmm. That is an interesting
And
question. I'm gonna leave that question open and keep an ear out to find out about it. Maybe
okay,
from you, Grace.
I'm gonna have to do some research because I only have like 2 weeks left.
Right? Yes. Well, that's the end.
Resources you mentioned, are they in the chat?
Yes, in the chat.
Okay.
John, can you paste him again? I might be able to paste him. No, I can't.
Well, it's okay. I can go back.
Okay. Yes. I think you'll need to scroll back while we're still on.
Oh, okay.
I
Anybody
have a
Yeah.
have any?
question. I have a
Yeah.
question on carrot flies.
Yeah.
I grew carrots with, under a mesh this last
Yeah.
year and had excellent results as far as keeping carrot flies out. Had no carrot flies at all. So,
Okay.
but then I was thumbing through doing some Google searches and I noticed some, and I think it's mostly from the UK, some carrot fencing. In other words, no top on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I Googled it. And so my question I put in there in the chat was, how high can a carrot fly? And apparently they can only fly about 2 feet.
Yeah.
So has anybody tried to grow them without a top? Grow
I do
carrots
know
without
that's
a
a very
top?
popular thing to do in the UK, but
Yeah,
I haven't tried it.
I think I'm gonna try it. They grew really well under my net, and my net was domed over, but that restricts light, correct? So
Hmm.
I had a whole lot of carrot tops, but then the carrots themselves were about half the size.
Hmm.
So I'm kind of wanting to correct that a little bit, and I'll probably grow both. I'll probably grow them the way I grew them last year, but then I'll probably also, so I'm 2 feet off the ground to start with. If I go another 2 feet,
Oh.
even if a wind draft carries them up and in, hopefully it's only a few. But I'm just curious if anybody had tried growing without a top, kind of making a fence for the
Yeah,
carrots.
and the growing them 2 feet above the soil is another method that they use in the
Yeah.
UK,
Now,
especially.
the year before last, I didn't grow them with a net, and I did get the carrot fly. Not a
Okay, so
lot of
you
them,
know.
not as many as I get at the ground level, but I
Hmm.
still got them. So
I
anyway,
love this.
I'm gonna
I
try
love
that
this.
this year. See
Small
how it
amount
goes.
of data, but it's still good.
Mhm.
Interesting. So I'm looking forward to finding out about that from you. So if I had a fence, since my bed is only in the ground, I would need to make it probably taller, one would assume. Interesting. Are there any other? I should take a look at the chat, but I'd have to stop
Oh,
sharing.
when's the next meeting?
It is the first Tuesday
In
of
March.
the next month of March. Yes.
Fantastic. I will
And
add
if
it.
oh, and bring your soil knowledge, experienced growers, and come learn from experienced growers about their soil knowledge. Um, that should be really cool to hear from people. And then in April, if you are a container grower and you would like to have more containers, like on your driveway or in unusual spaces, and maybe you're thinking of wicking bottom reservoir plantings and things like that, we have the president of the fruit club, who is named Darren Murphy, and he does what he calls micro farming. But I don't want you to think that you have to sell it, and have a farm. You can use it for your home growing, and so I call it small space growing. So that's in April. Yeah. Well, we should call it a night, I think.
Oh, just one
Oh,
quick question. The April one, is that the garden club subject? Is the pots, or is that a separate thing?
oh, good question. Yes, Veg Club on the first Tuesday of March. Sorry, and the first Tuesday of April is when Darren is going to come. So it is our session, and he's going to be our guest.
Great.